Yes, I think one thing I definitely agree with Mr. Buchi about is that we've come to the conclusion, all of us, that we don't have a silver bullet to this pandemic. And attempts to suppress it completely are not very realistic. So the measures are the best, they are satisfying measures. They are the best optimal measures available given the circumstances, which is to attempt somewhat to remove some of the repressions and some of the restrictions on people's rights, but not to make it unfettered. So I completely agree that these measures, in the way that they've been couched, are reasonable. Of course, the first attempt at formulating them has not met with, I'm not going to say approval, but certainly it has not met with the satisfaction of the religious leaders. And some of them have said that unless additional clarifications are done, they're not going to meet. But we do also have religious organizations in this country who've said that notwithstanding the civic measures, they intend as religious leaders to instruct their flocks to remain at home.
Yeah.
So that is also interesting.
They are in the majority.
But your specific question was about the management of the process. I think it's very much the case that what has to happen is that government has to try and spread out infections as much as it can. Whether or not that is working is where I disagree with my brother in the studio, in the sense that there isn't any modeling that I am privy to that suggests that the non-pharmaceutical interventions that are currently in place are having the effect of stretching. So we would need to see more efforts made at better understanding of the transmission dynamics. How disease is moving from one part to the other, where the hotspots are emerging and why. We will need at least a few published papers from the COVID-19 committee. Right. They don't have to be peer-reviewed papers. Right. But at the very least, some published papers that the rest of us, in some great detail, can begin to rely upon. The challenge we have now at present is that we don't have these papers. Nobody has published anything that says, here is what we've studied, here are the data. I've been looking at other countries, and the number of published white papers by government committees, scientific committees, it's unbelievable. I was just looking at the UK situation not too long ago. But take South Africa, which is much closer to us in terms of the circumstances. And they have had several published papers by their scientific committees telling you how the spread is happening and how they intend to stretch out the infectivity rate and the likes of it. So without that, I can only say, and I can only repeat, and this is not being derogatory, this is just being factual, that we are relying more on gut instinct, which in political management is allowed. You are allowed to use your instinct and your judgment. But that is what we're largely relying on. Right. I know for sure, speaking to health specialists in this country, that they have seen an increase in the burden at OPDs, which already are somewhat constrained, but also in admissions. One of the things that will happen is that we look at people in critical care and people with severe disease and then mortalities. We're not looking at people on admission in general. That information is not being provided. Right. So we are relying on our own surveys of medical practitioners in this country, and they are telling us that admissions are rising and people reporting with moderate illnesses are rising. We're not tracking those. So I think that we have to start increasing the range and the spectrum of policy tracking, outcomes tracking the outcomes, and some of these will require new indicators.